What's going on, you guys? So today I'm going to be talking about those of us who buy into a token at a certain level, at a certain price, and then after we buy into it, it just keeps on going down, 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 right? And some of you folks out there, you get it really hard on yourselves. Sometimes it demoralizes you or things like that. But the question is like, what do you do? Now, today I had two different people at different times of the day talk to me about Advantis, being in that same situation with Advantis, and then a few hours later, somebody in my group mentioned to me being in that situation with Kita. So here's the scenario, right? So you try to get into Advantis, but like, oops, it just pumped. You're like, I missed it, but let me wait till it retraces, and then I'm gonna get in. So you get in like right around here, right? And then it keeps going down, down, down. And before you know, you're down here, right? Now, same situation with Kita, right? You get into a Kita, maybe it's around here, maybe it's around here. But then one thing leads to another, the weeks are passing by, maybe a couple months, and then you notice you're going down, down, down. So what I like to do is I like to swing trade my way out of that situation. And I think it's rather fun, to be honest. Once you know how to play the game, it becomes rather fun. Even when you're underwater, you can just get yourself out of it. So, let me switch to this document that I just pulled up. Let's say you're in a situation where you spend $1,000 for 1,000 tokens of something, right? Kita and Advantis are pretty good examples, right? Because they both are, I guess, we're at a level of like $1 per token, right? Now they're like 50 cents or whatever, right? But so you spend $1,000 for 1,000 tokens of any particular coin, doesn't matter what it is. And then you notice a few weeks later that that bag of 1,000 tokens is now worth $500, right? So it's 50 cents per coin. So what I do is I wait for a pump. Right? I wait for a pump. I wait for it to surge. Now, let me switch back. So let's take us over to the 7-day chart for both of these, right? Both Kita and Advantis. So let's say you're down here, you're depressed, you're like, I'm underwater, right? And then it starts pumping. And then you sell some of it. Like I would sell 10%, right? Let's say 10% chunks. Same thing. You're down here with Kita, right? And then you want to sell. And then, you're going to sell a certain amount, even though like you're way down, right? Because right now it's like, okay, it's only 52 cents, right? 56 cents, right? That means you're way, way below your initial buy, right? But look, you got to look at it like this. If it goes down to this level, let's say down here, right? 28 cents. You have to understand that that is your new bottom, right? If you go back to this particular document right here, if you're in a situation where you spend $1,000 for tokens that are worth $1 each, but now they're worth 50 cents each, you have now arrived at your new bottom, and you have to play the game from there. So you got to learn how to play the game. So what do? You have to understand that your absolute goal is nothing to do with dollar amounts or money. Your goal is number and quantity of tokens, right? As long as you're in a good project, you got a high conviction on it because it has all the attributes of being a good project. It has the backing sometimes if it's a layer 1. Sometimes if it's a meme coin, it has docs devs. It has the marketing team. It has the listings on a centralized exchange. It has everything to be a good quality project that's going to pump when we get to the top of the cycle or top of the bull run or maybe top of the next run up, right? It's going to increase because your goal is to turn that $1,000 into 10,000, right? So not only 10,000, your goal essentially could be, higher than that, but let's just give it that, let's give it that 1,000% increase. So Your goal is to turn that $1,000 into $10,000 in the long run. So how do you do that? If you're at the bottom, you've reached your bottom, and then suddenly it's a green day, you got some good news in the market. Trump says he's willing to make a deal with China, and things suddenly turn green, right? So what happens next? Then you sell like a 10% chunk, right? Sell in 10% chunks, and then you wait for it to go back down again, because it will. It always does. If you look at the charts, it always does. You sell and you buy back in, and then when you use the money that you use the money that you've just sold, right, to buy back in. You buy more tokens. So now when you buy back in, you no longer have 1,000 tokens. You have 1,050. Now, in terms of dollar amounts, you're still underwater, right? You're still underwater, but every time you swing trade, you increase the quantity of your tokens, right? So even though you're selling at a lower price than your initial buy back then, you're selling at a lower price than your initial buy, but you're using that same amount of money to buy back in, and then you increase the quantity of your tokens in your bag. So in the long run, you might end up, if you keep doing this week after week, month after month, you might actually double the size of your bag in terms of token amount. So if you get that 1,000% increase when in the top of the bull run, when your expectation was to turn that $1,000 into $10,000, but now you have double the amount of tokens, right? So that $10,000 is actually going to be worth $20,000. So, and then you got to look at it from many different angles. So for example, let's say you don't get the 1,000% increase. Let's say you only get, like, at the top of the bull run, it's a 300% increase. So that $1,000 would essentially turn into $3,000. But because you've been swing trading it and you've increased the size of your bag and the overall quantity of tokens in your bag, and then let's say in this case, because you've been doing it consistently, you've doubled the size of your bag. So instead of 3,000, it's 6,000. Now, the reason why I say that you shouldn't look at the dollar amounts, you should look at the quantity of tokens and the actual increases, right? Your goal is the quantity of tokens, right? And the way you play the game to make this actually fun, I don't know, I just find it fun, is to trade based on percentage and increases. You look at the percentage and your goal is to increase the quantity of tokens. So if you want to look at it from a different point of view, let's say you're dealing with different amounts of money. You didn't spend $1,000. You put down $10,000, and your goal is to make it to your goal is to make it to 100,000, right? But then you've been swing trading it, and when you finally get that 1,000% increase above your initial buy, instead of making that $100,000, you got $200,000. This is how smart money works. A lot of people, they get trapped into this, and sometimes when you don't put down that much, and then let's say, for example, you only put down $100. You put down $100 and your expectation is to 10x it, and you got, you're going to get to $1,000. So then you're like, then you just leave it there. It goes down. Now the $100 bag is worth $50. You're like, it's not worth it, right? But no matter what, you have to think how you're going to get to the point where you're trading tens of thousands of dollars. If you don't play the game, you have to play the game in order to get that increase. So you spent only $100. You watched it go down to $50, but now you're swing trading it, and it increases to, in the long run, it'll increase not to $1,000, but $2,000 in this scenario. There could be much better examples than this, but I give you some real examples, some examples that I've had done recently. So the Midas token. Midas is a brand new token. I think it came out end of August or something like that. Throughout the month of September, it was pumping like hell. It was pumping. I started pumping. I sold 10%, and then it kept going up. It's okay. I can't buy back in because I can, obviously it's higher than when I sold. The objective is to sell high, buy back in low. sell high, buy back in low, sell high, buy back in low. Just keep doing it over and over again. But with the Midas token, I sold 10% of my bag. It kept going up. A few days later, it kept going up. I sold another 10% for the second time. It kept going up. So then I sold another 10%. The days and the weeks started passing by. Then it started consolidating. I'm like, damn, you know, this is the price is still below my average sell price, right? Because now I'm selling multiple times. I have to average out those sales, right? And the current price is still higher than my average sell price. I need the current price to be lower than my average sell price, right? But then it consolidated, traded sideways for a while. Then it kept going up again. And then I sold 10% again. And then it kept going up. And I sold 10% again. Meanwhile, I had 5 different sell orders selling Midas. And then finally, just like not even like I guess it was like not even 7 days ago, maybe like 4 or 5 days ago, I finally bought back in because it finally came back down, right? So the price went below the average of those 4 sell orders. And then I bought back in and I was able to increase the size of my bag, increase the number of tokens in my bag. Now, this is just a situation. I was never underwater with Midas. I'm just telling you what happens when it just keeps going up, even though you sold 10%. I usually like to do 10% chunks. That makes it easy, right? When all you do is just remove the number in the ones position, you know, all the way to the right, and it's just boom, 10%. You can do 20%. Sometimes I do 20, sometimes I do 30. It all depends on the situation. But yeah, I mean that is one situation. And guess what, guys? Guess what? I only spent $50 on my initial buy with Midas, and I was doing these really tiny swing trades. But in the long run, it's my goal to turn that $50 into $5,000. You see what I mean? This is how you play the game. The game is, that's why we call them plays. You make a play on it. It's the game. And it's fun. It's actually fun. So it's no different from playing a video game or a board game or a game on the sidewalk or a game out in the woods. It's just a game. This is how you play the game. And when you start realizing it's fun and you know how to play the game, you start to get really good at it. All right. For me, it's just absolutely fun. Another good example, you know, I did that 550X on a MYX, but right around the same time, I bought Tutorial on BNB. Now, Tutorial ran from, let's say, May up until in September. It kept going up and down, and I kept swing trading it. Right? And from my bottom up to its peak in September, it did a 94X. But because I kept swing trading it, it was more like I did a 200X. So, and I still haven't cashed out. I'm still riding the waves on that. And eventually I'm, you know, going to walk away with a pretty nice bag, right? So, I mean, yeah, this is pretty much, let me go back to these, you know, and the thing is, like, I get a lot of people in my group saying they never seen somebody trade like this. Like, some people have different problems in different situations. Some people, whether or not they get underwater in this type of situation, some people tell me that they get scared to sell. They see it pumping, they're in profits, and they see it pumping, and they get kind of greedy, and they don't know what comes over them, and they just don't sell, and they don't know why. And then they see it go back down, and then of course after that they get underwater. I've had people telling me the opposite, where it's you know, they would sell when they just do a couple of multipliers, right? It's up like 200 or 300%, and you know, and then they would sell again. They would sell everything after, you know, just after like a 6X, or, you know, or so on. And then it keeps on going up, but they don't leave a certain amount in their bag. So I guess it's, you know, it's just a matter of just playing the game. Now I'll give you, for example, now let's say right here, this is Avantis, right? So you're down here. This is like literally this morning, like when I woke up in the morning, right? or let's say last night, right around midnight. So you're down here, and then you see that it pumped like this. Look at that. That's a 57% increase over your bottom, because your bottom is down here. Even though, here, let's do like this. Even though your let's say your initial buy is up here, like right up here, right? Somewhere around here, your initial buy is like down over here, right? This right here is your bottom, and you have to work with that. And you see a pump of 57%, you see a pump 57%. Man, you gotta take profits. You gotta sell 10%. So let's say you sold 10% over here, and you see it keep on going up, then you sell 10% again. You do it twice, right? And then now your average is right around, let's say you sold here, then you sold here, so your average is right around here. Let's just switch to price. So you say your average is like 63 cents now for that sell. And then, now it's coming down. Now it's on a red candle. Now you might want to consider buying back in. So let's say, I don't know, let's say you sold once to make it easier for this, right? Let's say you sold here, right, at 71 cents, and you want to buy back in right now, and you want to measure this. Like, look where you're at. So you would be buying back in after a previous sell of 15% higher, right? So you're buying back in, and you're acquiring more advantage tokens with the same amount of money that you just sold for. Let's say it was $100, right? You got $100. You transfer it over and whatever you're using. Let's say you're using a wallet. You're swapping to USDT, or for me, if I'm using a base chain, I swap to USDC. Or if you're on Coinbase and you swap it over to cash or whatever it is, you have $100 now in dry powder that you just sold a portion of your advantage. Now you get to buy back in with more advantage and get more tokens than you previously had. In this case, what you would get, like, you get an extra, like, 50% of tokens. So you're like 1.5 token, whatever, you're increasing the size of your overall quantity of tokens. That's the goal. Same thing. Now this is pretty cool. Now, this is awesome. Look, this is Kita. Now, I only got into Kita recently, right? But there are tokens where I get in early, like here. And let's examine this right here. So I would be like, okay, I'd be like going up, selling, right? And I watch my average, and maybe I buy back in. I'd be going up. It's just selling like multiple times on multiple 10% chunks along the way. Then it starts going down. I'm like, right? I'm going to let it go down. Maybe I'm going to buy back in over here. Now, the same thing. Let's say it goes down, right? Go down, like I buy back in. Now it's going up and I sell. Now it's going down again, right? And then, I buy back in. Then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It's still going down some more. I'm like, okay, it's going, let's say I bought back in, but now I have to wait because I have to wait for a pump. But it's going down. It's going down. Than like when I previously bought back in over here. But I'm like, okay, this is not too good. But I don't care. I'm like, I'll just wait for the next pump. And boom, I found it again, right? Now it goes up and I start selling, right? And then I measure it, right? You see, it's like you sell, you got 18%, or it's like you keep waiting and you buy back in over here or something like that, right? It goes down, you keep on swing trading up and down. And you know what? You get a chart like this, you start with 1,000 tokens and you keep on doing this all the way through. Guess how many tokens you'd have by the time you get over here? Guess how many? You'd probably have like 2,000. If you did that from May, like I just told you with tutorial on BNB, if you did that on May, all the way out here, you'd have a lot more tokens than your initial buy. And like I said, the quantity, the dollar amount doesn't matter. The quantity of tokens is what matters. And if you're ever in doubt, just think about it like your smart money. You just put in $1 million, right? And then you're gonna keep on swing trading it. And you know, it's like if you increase your dollar amount by, you know, 100%, I mean, you're making another $1 million, you know. It's like you got to look at it in terms of how much would you value it if this was worth more money. Now, if you only put in $100 and your expectation is for it to get to $1,000, then you're just like, oh, I don't care about it because that's not going to buy me a Lambo. It's not even going to buy me a really high-tech bicycle. You're like, I don't care. But how do you get to that point, right? How do you get to that point where you can turn that $1,000 into $2,000? And then eventually you're trading $5,000, and then eventually trading $10,000, things like that. So, I mean, yeah, you got to play the game. And I think it's fun. I think it's totally fun. Anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. If you're not subscribed already, you know, click that subscribe button and click that like button and, you know, take a look at those links in the description below if you want to learn more about stuff like this and how to trade. So, yeah, anyways, guys, I'll catch you guys later.